The worst kind of betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people you trusted the most. For years, I believed my family would always stand beside me. No matter how difficult life became, I thought my parents and my older brother Daniel would never turn against me. I was wrong. The day everything changed, I was standing inside our family business office. My father sat behind his desk, my mother stood silently near the door, and Daniel was holding a folder in his hands. My father looked at me with disappointment. "Where is the missing money?" I stared at him. "What money?" Daniel opened the folder and placed several documents on the desk. According to those documents, money had disappeared from the company accounts. And somehow, my name was connected to the transactions. My heart sank. I didn't do this. Daniel looked at me and shook his head. "Then explain these documents." "I can't explain something I didn't do." I looked at my father, expecting him to defend me. He didn't. Instead, he said something that broke me. "Maybe you should leave until we figure this out." I couldn't believe it. After everything I had done for that business, they were treating me like a criminal. I had worked there for years. I had brought in customers, stayed late, solved problems, and even covered for Daniel when he made mistakes. But none of that mattered anymore. They had already chosen who they believed. And it wasn't me. I tried explaining everything. I begged them to check the original records. Nobody listened. Finally, I picked up my small suitcase and walked out of the house that night. Nobody followed me. Nobody called my phone. As I stood outside, I felt completely alone. For the first time in my life, I had no idea what my future looked like. But before I walked away, I made myself one promise. I will come back. Not to beg them for forgiveness. Not to prove that I was better than them. I would come back after building a life they could never take away from me. At that moment, I didn't know how I would do it. I only knew one thing. They thought they had broken me. They had no idea what they had just created. The first year after leaving home was the hardest year of my life. I had very little money, no family support, and a reputation that had been damaged by accusations I didn't deserve. But I refused to give up. I found a small job at a local company and started working from morning until evening. At night, I studied business, marketing, and finance. There were days when I wanted to quit. There were nights when I wondered whether my family had been right about me. But every time those thoughts came back, I remembered the way they had looked at me. And I kept going. Slowly, my life started changing. I saved enough money to start a small online business. At first, I had only a few customers. Then those customers started recommending me to others. My small business grew. 1 year became 2. 2 became 3. By the 3rd year, I had built something I never thought possible. I had employees. I had major clients. And most importantly, I had confidence again. I wasn't the broken person who had walked out of that house anymore. Then one afternoon, I received an email from a large company interested in working with my business. I agreed to the meeting. When I entered the conference room, I froze. Daniel was sitting at the table. My brother. The same person who had helped convince everyone that I was guilty. He stood up and smiled awkwardly. "Look at you," he said. "You've done really well." I didn't smile. "Why are you here?" He sat down. "Our family business is struggling." I said nothing. "We need your company." I almost laughed. Years ago, they had pushed me away. Now they needed me. But Daniel wasn't finished. "There is something you should know about what happened." My expression changed. "What?" He looked toward the door before speaking. "The documents they used against you." He paused. They weren't telling the whole story. My heart started beating faster. "What are you talking about?" Daniel lowered his voice. "You were never responsible for that missing money." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I had spent 3 years rebuilding my life while carrying the weight of an accusation that wasn't mine. And now Daniel was telling me he knew the truth. I leaned forward. "Then why did you let them blame me?" Daniel looked down. I was scared. That answer made something inside me go cold. Because suddenly, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Someone had chosen to sacrifice me. And I was finally going to find out why. Daniel sent me copies of the original financial records that night. I spent hours studying them. The more I read, the more obvious the truth became. The money hadn't disappeared because of me. Several transactions had been approved through Daniel's account. He had been making financial decisions without telling our father. When the company started losing money, Daniel panicked. Instead of admitting his mistakes, he allowed the blame to fall on me. But there was something even worse. My father had discovered problems with the records months before I was accused. He had questions. He could have investigated. He could have defended me. But he didn't. He chose to protect Daniel. That realization hurt more than anything else. I sat alone in my office, staring at the documents. Part of me wanted to call them immediately. I wanted to scream. I wanted them to feel the same pain I had felt. But I stopped myself. Anger had already cost me enough. I wasn't going to let it control me again. So I made a different decision. I gathered every document and gave everything to an independent accountant. Then I contacted the company's legal team. I didn't make threats. I didn't insult anyone. I simply presented the truth. Weeks later, the results came back. The evidence was clear. I had not stolen anything. The records used against me had been misleading. Daniel had hidden important financial information. And my father had known enough to question the accusations against me. The truth finally reached the family business. Daniel lost his position. My father stepped away from daily management. The people who once called me dishonest suddenly had nothing to say. Then my mother called. "Please come home," she said. I didn't want to go. But eventually, I agreed. When I walked into that same room where they had once accused me, everything felt different. My father stood up. "I'm sorry." I looked at him. "You should have believed me." He lowered his head. "I know." Daniel started crying. I was afraid. I stared at him for a moment. Then I said, "Being afraid doesn't give you the right to destroy someone else's life." Nobody answered. I placed the documents on the table. "I don't need revenge anymore." Daniel looked at me. "Then why did you come?" I looked around the room. "Because I wanted you to see what the truth looks like." For the first time, they had nothing left to hide. After the truth came out, I had a choice. I could walk away forever. Or I could help fix what was left behind. At first, everyone expected me to take revenge. They thought I would use my success to destroy the family business. But I didn't. I offered them a solution. The company needed professional management, better financial controls, and complete honesty. I agreed to help restructure the business, but I made one condition. No more secrets. No more blaming innocent people. No more protecting someone's reputation at the cost of another person's life. My father accepted. Daniel eventually accepted too. It took months, but the business slowly began recovering. And something strange happened during that time. I realized I didn't hate my family anymore. I was hurt. I was disappointed. But I wasn't angry. Because I had finally understood something important. They hadn't destroyed my life. They had only destroyed the version of my life I thought I needed. When I left that house with one suitcase, I believed I had lost everything. But I had actually gained something. Freedom. I built my own company. I learned how to trust myself. I discovered that my value wasn't determined by my family's opinion. And most importantly, I learned that being betrayed doesn't mean your story is over. Sometimes, it is where your real story begins. A year later, I stood inside my office and looked at the city through the window. I remembered the person I had been 3 years earlier. Broken. Confused. Alone. If I could speak to that person now, I would say, don't give up. One day, you will understand why you had to walk away. And one day, the people who doubted you will see the truth. They thought I was broken. But they were wrong. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And when I finally came back stronger, I didn't need to destroy anyone. My success was enough. My truth was enough. And my peace was the greatest victory I could have ever chosen. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't watching someone regret what they did to you. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming so strong, so successful, and so peaceful that their approval no longer matters. They thought they had ended my story. They were only giving me a new beginning. And that was the moment I finally understood. I hadn't lost my life. I had found it.